It's too bad she won't live. But then again, who does?
Welcome to Popped, where you can learn about and relive some of the best that entertainment has to offer. We'll revisit some of our favorite films that helped influence and shape our lives. Now sit back, strap in, and keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times. And if you have to, take a shot of whiskey to keep from swooning when you hear their voices. Here are your hosts,
Daniel, Ben, and Tanya.
If only you could see what I've seen with your eyes.
Also have the overpopulation, people crowded together, the very distinct class divide that exists. Yeah.
That's becoming more prominent in our world as well.
Yeah.
One other thing that I noticed that you guys didn't touch on, I thought maybe somebody might bring up, is the fact that is the cloning. Now we can clone animals these days. We sort of frown on it, but in the book, and I don't know if anybody's read the book. I've read the book a couple times now, and I have to say that this is one of the rare times where the film, in my opinion, supersedes and is better than the book. And there's a couple of reasons for it.
Agreed.
The book is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say the book is bad. It just, I can see why they went the direction they did with the film, because the book itself is not a film. It's a lot of introspection and inner dialogue, and it doesn't flow the same way. For instance, that whole ending in Blade Runner, where you've got the showdown between the hunter and the hunted, and the way that flips, doesn't really happen in the book. He just shows up and and retires these androids, and there's no anything. It just happens.
Over like 2 pages.
Yeah, and it's just done, and it's not about the whole chase at all in the book. It's just more about the question of humanity versus bioengineered. Where is humanity? And the whole title, "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep," is about the fact that they want, again, it's a, how do you explain this? It's a double entendre, right? Because one of his things in the book is owning a cloned sheep or owning an animal, because they're so rare. Most of them have been wiped out, and if you can own a real one, you have massive wealth and massive ability to get an animal. So most people resort to getting a bioengineered animal, and it's a status symbol, which is not anywhere in this film really, although they do show the owl, and they show him tracking down the snake with the snake scale and trying to find out, but it's more of a detective story here, and the animal is sort of a backdrop as opposed to being like with what the book is about. So to me, I guess that was the other thing, is what I was getting at initially, is that we don't really have that issue with animals. We haven't wiped all the animals off the planet yet, and I like using the word yet.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Well, with regard to the difference between the movie and the book, I have not read the book, so I can't speak to that.
Well, it's not about the book. It's just about something that stuck out to you, because we were talking about things that didn't happen, right?
Yeah.
And basically that big long-winded thing I just did right there was about the fact that we don't clone animals for owning at this point.
That's true.
Okay.
Although actually, aren't there companies that can clone dead pets? Isn't that a thing? I think I heard that advertised, or they're working on that. Like, if you love a pet, you can get it cloned.
I am
Am I
horrified.
crazy? Maybe
I'm
I'm imagining
horrified at that thought.
it. I could be.
Somebody didn't watch Pet Cemetery.
I'm gonna say I hope not, Tanya, but I
Let's
can't
see.
say you're wrong.
Let's see if we can bring your dead son back too, Gage.
Oh no, let's not go there. That movie terrified me. Anyway, off subject. But they did clone a sheep, right? Dolly the sheep?
Dolly the
Yes.
sheep.
They've
Yeah, Dolly the
cloned
sheep.
they've cloned animals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they have, but not to the extent now. And that was the thing. It's like, what things that are present or prevalent in this film do we not really have in this time period? And people regularly owning cloned animals is not the case. You know, you can still go out and get a real dog. You can still go out and get a real cat. You can own a sheep if you want to. You don't have to get a clone one. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about the symbolism and motif in this film. Now, I don't know if you guys picked up on this, but to me, every time I watch this, the thing that sticks out to me the most is the use of eyes and perception. Eyes and perception, I think, are at the crux, the absolute center of what makes this film work. You start the film with Holden standing in that is it Holden? That's his name, right? I'm not getting the Expanse mixed up with this guy. Standing in that interrogation room, or in the office of Tyrell Corporation, and he's looking out over the hellscape that is Los Angeles, and it's reflected in his eye. It's the first thing that you see, right? Well, not the first thing you see, but it's the first eye you see in the film. And to me, that tells me that he sees all of this stuff, and he's part of this world. He's very aware of it, the inequality and all of these things, but he's still just a cog in the machine. Did you guys pick anything up looking at the symbolism of eyes in this film? And, you know, what are your thoughts?
I didn't actually think about a deeper meaning to it, but I did notice that they used essentially what I think of as highlighted eyes quite a bit. You know, from the I forget the character's name, but the inspector played by Edward James Olmos.
That's Gaff.
Gaff had very interestingly colored eyes, and quite often throughout the film, the Andes or the replicants would have their eyes reflect, almost like old-time flash photography. You'd get red eye, and then during the movie, Pris specifically blacks out a strip around her eyes, which of course makes her eyes pop a lot more.
Yep.
So the movie was, and of course there is the funky little dude in the frozen icy laboratory who all he does all day is make eyeballs to go into people's bodies.
True.
Yeah. And then Tyrell unfortunately losing his eyeballs.
Yes.
Well, they tried to take out eyes twice in the film. Once was successful. If you think about it, Leon attacks Deckard at one point, and he's going for his eyes.
And tried to, but
right,
he got retired.
I find that symbolic, because, well, let's talk about Tyrell and his eyes. So it's painfully obvious. They do this very obvious symbolism right there. He's got these bifocals on, these like very, very thick glasses.
Yes.
And that tells me visually that his perception, he doesn't see far. And, you know, that juxtaposes with what he's created. He hasn't seen far enough ahead of what's going to happen with this creation. I mean, he created them as slaves, right? He's building his corporation, and he's building the future on the backs of slaves. Mm-hmm. So Eldon Tyrell's not a good guy, and he's also very limited in his vision, very myopic view of these Andes or these replicants. Thoughts?
That's interesting. I went a different direction with it. Though I don't disagree with what you said there. That makes total sense to me. But what occurred to me as I was watching is this guy, he absolutely has the money to have his own eyes worked on. But he doesn't, for some reason, doesn't trust that technology. Just goes ahead and uses these thick, must be heavy glasses.
It's a good point. Tanya?
For me, I didn't get the sense that he had a myopic vision about what he was doing. It was much more about it was a business model. The androids that he was making were just collateral. He had no qualms about what he was doing because he was under the impression that he would be able to control them with all the fail safes, and he really didn't care. So I don't know that it was short-sightedness as much as it was greed and a sense of being in control when maybe he really wasn't.
I think it's all of those things. And the short-sightedness, to me, I absolutely do think it's that. I'm going to have to completely disagree with you because it's such an obvious symbol. You know, those thick glasses, they mean something. Just like Ben said, he has the money to fix it, but he doesn't. And the writers didn't want to change that. So, I mean, to me, that's just probably one of the most obvious things with Eldon Tyrell. So we'll have to disagree there, but it's all good, right?
We have disagreed before. It's not the first time.
Let's see. Again, so that the eyes, perception is a big thing, right? The way people see themselves and the way the hunter sees the androids. If you notice the way this goes, it's a lot about connection and perception and empathy. A lot of the empathy is being shown by who in this film, and we got to wonder: are these androids, or these androids supreme of electric sheep, or these replicants? Do they deserve to be treated like humans? I mean, they killed a bunch of people so they could come back because why? They have a short lifespan. There's this 4-year lifespan built into them to prevent them from becoming too human, right? And if you watch this film, who sticks out to you the most as having the most empathy?
Batty, for me. He for me is the most empathetic character of the entire film.
Yeah, fully agree.
Yeah, I'd agree there too. And it comes across in many different ways. You see him truly mourn the loss of his companions. And obviously in the end, he shows empathy for Deckard, the man who killed all of his friends, probably because at that moment he appreciates life more than he'd appreciated it up until that point. But I find him probably the most compelling character in this, and it's nice because throughout the film you're thinking, this is the bad guy, this is our antagonist, right? And he's dangerous. He's the combat model. He killed 23 people off world, then he came here and he kills Eldon Tyrell, he kills JF Sebastian, and JF Sebastian, who had befriended him. And it's you think of him throughout this film as this sinister android who needs to be put down, and then they flip it completely on its head in the end of the film, and suddenly you realize, oh my god, is he really the bad guy?
Yeah, it's definitely a nice, as you said, it's a nice flip.
Yeah, I think cinematically this is probably one of the most successful flips that I've seen, where they didn't just like, oh, suddenly this guy wasn't the bad guy after all. This one makes you think about it. You have to sit there and you process. And I think that's what got me when I was watching this film. I think, what was I, 11 years old when I first saw this film, and it stuck with me so much because it really made me think about, what do we consider human? And the whole concept of this character at the end, I don't know if I fully grasped the first time I watched it that Roy Batty wasn't necessarily the bad guy. But as time went by and I started analyzing it more because I watched it so much, I started to think about, well, wait, Deckard's kind of a dick, you know. He hunts them down with this sort of merciless machine-like efficiency, and even the police chief at some point says, "You're a goddamn killing machine," right? Yet the person who shows the most empathy is Roy in the end. Ends up saving his life. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I'm curious to hear what you guys feel about the dichotomy of these characters, how Rick Deckard is juxtaposed against Roy Batty.
It definitely seems very intentional to me. It gave me a sense throughout the entire movie, and as you said, not so much when I was really young and saw it for the first time, but the subsequent times that I have seen the film. The film is an exploration of the difference, the dividing line, if there even is one, between human and non-human. What actually makes someone a human being versus not.
Right.
And then also the difference between being human and the quality of humanity in a person.